You got more questions? I got more answers. All right, this question comes from Vinyl Penguin. Vinyl Penguin writes, I've been told throughout the decades of record collecting that if you want to have a collection and not a library, purge things you don't listen to yearly. If you don't listen to it at least once a year, it's obviously not something you care about. Interesting. This is not so much a question, but a comment, but there are a couple of things here that I want to talk about. First is the whole idea of whether the music you hold on to, the music you own, is a collection or a library. I would say 10 years ago I was really striving to have a library of music. That's when records were cheap. Now I'm more so in collection mode. I'm much more picky with the stuff I buy. And there is this clear, at least in my mind, this clear distinction between building a library and building a collection. Let me explain. When you have a collection of music, in my mind, it's more the stuff you really love, right? You're not necessarily seeking an artist's entire discography. You're picking and choosing the stuff you love, the stuff you know you're going to listen to regularly. Whereas if you're building a library, you're holding onto music for a greater reason, right? There's a sense of completism. There is a sense of obligation to add things to the library, right? You want an artist's complete collection. You want pressings from various countries, that kind of stuff. And there still is definitely an element of having a library in my collection, particularly with certain artists like Black Sabbath, Kiss, Priest, right? I'm a completist, kind of, when it comes to those artists. I love collecting pressings from around the world, but it's gotten really expensive. So I'm, as I said, I'm much more in collection mode now, like being picky with stuff I buy, and the stuff I buy I know I'm going to listen to. I'm not building a collection for some kind of greater purpose, right? I'm not, my focus is not on this library. It's on what do I like right now, and what do I know I'm going to listen to. That's my way of looking at it. Maybe yours is different, and there's nothing wrong with having a library or a collection. It's kind of whatever you're into. There's a second part of this question, or this Vinyl Penguin statement, saying if you don't listen to it at least once a year, it's obviously not something you care about. And I strongly disagree with that portion of the statement. I've talked about it before. I'm a big proponent of purging my collection. I go through it regularly. If I know I'm never going to listen to it, or I listen to it and I don't like it, yeah, man, I'll purge it, sell it, use that money and reinvest it in my collection. But just because I haven't listened to something in a year doesn't mean I will, never listen to it again. Some records I like, I dig, I don't listen to for a year, 2 years, 5 years. There's some stuff on my shelves probably haven't listened to in 20 years, but I don't know. I just take comfort in the fact knowing it's there, and I don't want to get rid of those titles, and I know I eventually will go back and listen to them, and when I do, it'll be kind of like being reacquainted with an old friend. I don't know. That's my way of looking at it. We all look at collections in different ways, and I guess in a way it may be liberating to think, if I haven't listened to this in a year, I'm getting rid of it. But that's not necessarily the way I look at things. Anyway, Vinyl Penguin, we had a bit of back and forth, and Vinyl Penguin responded with a follow-up saying, the short version of my experience is I went from a near 25,000 piece physical media library in a small apartment to less than a 200-piece collection. Honestly, it was incredibly hard to do mentally, but in the end, I was much happier with both myself and my collection. I'm back up to almost 1,000, but I can see I listen to everything and enjoy what I have a lot more. Libraries do have their place, but I think for the most part, they become overwhelming. Totally fair, man. And I can see how that would be liberating if you feel overwhelmed by a collection, getting rid of some of it. I can totally see that. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Those are Vinyl Penguin's thought. How about you, dear 33ers? Do you have a library or a collection? Do you purge? How do you manage it? Let me know in the comments. What's this one? Valane Digital. Any records you totally regret buying? Yeah, I think we all have some regrets in terms of the records we have bought. Most of my regrets are records that are poorly pressed or don't sound good. A couple of quick examples. David Bowie's Let's Dance. The original US and the original Canadian pressings sound amazing. Those are some of the best sounding records in my collection. And a couple years ago, they reissued Bowie's Let's Dance. And I bought it out of curiosity, thinking, this is such an amazing sounding record. What would a new pressing sound like? And it sounded like garbage, man. I listened to it once or twice. It sounded dead, flat, boring. The original is just so lively and exciting, and the reissue sucked. So yeah, regretted buying that one. Same with a couple of the recent Alice Cooper reissues. Again, it may have been Friday Music, I can't recall, but there was a reissue of Alice Cooper Killer. Same thing, just sounded dull, lifeless, and boring. What else? Some of the recent Maiden stuff. And by recent, I mean in the last 20 years. I keep trying to give those guys a chance, and I keep kicking myself after the fact because I can't get into modern Maiden. I think, in my view, my opinion, their last good album was Brave New World, and after that, they kind of went off the deep end with these, like, every song seems to be 15 minutes long without any hooks and any end in sight. And I keep buying them. I got to learn my lesson. I think I'm done with Maiden because I've regretted everything I've bought since Brave New World. All right, this next question comes from Prez67. How do you keep track of your records? Do you know what record is on what shelf? Yeah, I generally do. I keep my records generally in alphabetical order by artist. And then within those artist categories, I generally keep the records sorted by year of release. I say generally because sometimes records get a little bit out of order within the artist categories. And another reason I say generally is because, like, where do you put soundtracks? Where do you put compilations? So at the back of my collection, I have a section for soundtracks and a section for compilations. So yeah, organizing my stuff that way makes things pretty easy to find. That's my records. My compact discs are not sorted. I try to keep the artist together, but beyond that, there is no rhyme or reason. Like, Black Sabbath could be there, Judas Priest could be there. I got to do something about the compact disc collection. It's on the to-do list. All right, this question comes from Ed Perez. Ed wrote, do you use an app to catalog what albums you already own? I've done the mistake of buying the same album twice. Want to finally organize myself and catalog them. Thank you for your help. Man, I have done that. I just did it recently. I talked about accidentally buying 2 copies of the last Judas Priest album because I forgot I owned the compact disc, and then I went and I bought the record. So I used to catalog all of my stuff in Google Sheets. I had the artist, the album, how much I paid for it, the catalog number, the condition, and I stopped doing that about a year ago. It just wasn't fun for me anymore. If I could do it all over again, I would start cataloging all my stuff in Discogs because it makes it so easy, and you have everything on the app and you can easily refer to it, you know, how much you spent and the value of it and all that kind of stuff. And I may still take the time at some point to go catalog my entire collection in Discogs. Not right now. I don't have a lot of free time right now, but I may do that someday. If anyone is just getting into this or still has a modest collection, I would 100% recommend you use something like Discogs to catalog your records and start early while it's still ezy. All right, Memal25 writes, I'd love to hear a check-in on what your current Holy Grail albums are. This is always a fun one. And having been collecting for years and years, I've acquired most of my Holy Grails. And the Holy Grails I don't have, I've kind of given up on because most would be too expensive and unattainable at this point. I mean, a couple of my Holy Grails would be an original leather records pressing of Motley Crue's debut album, Too Fast for Love, either first, second, or third pressing. And I kick myself to this day because about 6 years ago now, I was at the record show in Fargo, North Dakota, and one of the sellers there had a VG Plus copy, Too Fast for Love, third pressing leather records for $105 US. I had it in my hands, I was examining it, and I put it down. Stupid mistake, Frank, because now their record is like $500 or $600 or something like that. I would love to have original UK pressings of those original like 5, 6, 7 Black Sabbath albums, everything up into Sabotage, Black Sabbath to Sabotage, UK pressings, originals. I'd love those. Again, I probably never will. Those are getting pretty expensive and hard to find in really good condition. That's about it. Maybe Kiss, Sonic Boom. Another one I kicked myself over because I remember when it was available on Kiss Online for like $25 or whatever, and I passed on it. So yeah, those are a few of my holy grails. All right, to this next question. How many records have you bought so far this year? Good question. I don't really know. As I said, I've stopped cataloging and counting the records I buy. I buy a lot less now as compared to 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. I probably buy 1 or 2 records a month, something like that. I don't know. How about you guys? Have you slowed down on your vinyl purchases in recent years, or is it still full steam ahead? I'd love to know. Derek Williams, Frank, have you considered Crown Royal with Royal Crown Soda? This is a good question. I'm a big fan of Crown Royal whiskey. It's distilled like an hour's drive from my backyard, and I typically mix it, the standard Crown. I'm not talking about the premium Crown or the flavor Crown, but just the standard Crown. I typically mix with Diet Pepsi on the rocks, and I have thought about Royal Crown Cola, but it turns out they no longer sell Royal Crown Cola in Canada. I was thinking, I haven't seen that in like, I don't know, 5 or 10 years. I looked it up, and it's true. The rights to Royal Crown were bought by another cola company in Canada, and they just stopped. They just stopped years ago. I'm actually going down to the States here pretty soon. Maybe I'll have to look for Royal Crown again. I remember thinking it wasn't that great when I had it. It tasted like, I don't know. I didn't care for it, but I will give it another shot. Alex wrote, what's a go-to song to test up equipment? When I'm testing equipment, there are a few, not necessarily songs, but records I put on because A, they sound good, and B, I'm just so used to hearing them. I know what I'm looking for. I mentioned it earlier in this video, but one of my go-tos is David Bowie's Let's Dance, original Canadian or original US pressing. One of the best sounding records I've ever heard. And they're typically pretty cheap. You can still get them for $5, $6, $7, $8. If you don't have a copy, an original copy of Bowie's Let's Dance, get it, man. Sounds so good. Another test record for me is side 2 of Kiss Dressed to Kill. It's not the best sounding record in the world, but the production is so simple. Bass, drums, 2 guitars, vocals, and I know that album so well. I can pick out things. That's another one I tend to use, as well as side 4 of Pink Floyd's The Division Bell. Damien wrote, scrolling through your videos, I don't see anything on your embarrassing childhood collection. Surely you've got some 45s from when you were a kid. Casey and the Sunshine Band, Osmonds, not sure your age, but you gotta have something. I am 50 years old, and I don't really have any embarrassing records from my youth. The first record I bought with my own money was Quiet Riot's Mental Health in 1983. I still have my original copy that I bought at the department store when I was 10 or 11 years old. Don't listen to it a lot or at all anymore, but I wouldn't say that is an embarrassing one. And before that, I'm not sure if anyone outside of Canada recalls this, but anyone my age will remember the Mini Pops. Those were a collection or series of records put out by K-Tel, and it was kids singing the big hits of the day and older hits. I don't think I have my Mini Pops anymore, but I'm not really embarrassed by that. I had some Smurfs records, stuff like that, but nothing I would necessarily qualify as embarrassing. All right, 33ers, how would you have answered today's questions? Let me know. Also, if you're looking to support this channel, check out the Channel 33 RPM store. Just Google Channel 33 RPM store. I will be back soon. Till then, keep on spinning.